Hello, and welcome back for another Sims 4 speed build video today. Believe it or not, it is a limited pack build, and believe it or not, weeks ago, and we had this random wheel generator. Now, this is from the streamathon that I did a couple of weeks ago. We had this random wheel generator where we were going through different builds throughout the stream every hour, and I had start a new build as one of the options, and it landed on it, and so that is why we're doing this. And then I just decided to make it a limited pack build for Paranormal as well as Realm of Magic. And then on top of that, with the budget, now I put it in here because I knew y'all wouldn't believe me, but I had it from 20,000 to 100,000 in increments of 20, and we actually got the maximum budget of 100,000, which is really great because I was super inspired from a lawn decor object, and I just thought it was really cute. I love the vibe of it. It had an abandoned look to it. Now, I didn't do that necessarily, and it was really hard with the limited pack build, so thank goodness I wasn't planning on doing that. But I liked the framing of the house, and it made me think of like a suburban home. So this is what I'm calling the Spoopy Suburban. So with this being a suburban home, obviously, like, I usually do some pretty elaborate, or I would consider elaborate or ornate options with the floor plan and the shapes of the house, as well as just cluttering and decorations and such. This is a lot more straightforward than most of my builds because I don't do a lot of limited pack builds. But with it being inspired from what I found on that picture, I definitely wanted to keep to that. And also, I just thought about those suburban homes that are like in subdivisions, and they're just like very boxy. So if you know, you know. I think a lot of us, at least here in America, definitely have seen these subdivisions where they're just like literally squares. They're rectangles that are stacked on top of one another, and that's the home. So that was what I was channeling with this. I had some people coming in the stream while we were working on this, and I was like, it'd be nice if you could add some shape to the house. I'm like, trust me, I know. But I had a picture that I was referencing that I was really inspired by, and I also wanted it to feel more suburban. So I was going with the idea of it being a subdivision home. And again, y'all know, if you've seen these types of homes, they do exist all over the place in America. I personally am not the biggest fan of them. My brother actually lives in one of these types of homes, and it's just like a big rectangle like this, two rectangles on top of one another. So I get it. Trust me, I wanted to add more shape to it too, but I really wanted to go with the prop that we had, and I think it's really cute actually with how it looks. I want it to be a bit more taller and have more of a taller look than with the width of the house, if that makes sense. And honestly, it's starting to kind of make me think of Monster House. If y'all have seen that movie, it's been so long, so I don't think the house from Monster House looks like this necessarily, but I'm getting Monster House vibes from it, if that makes sense. Now, obviously, with Realm of Magic being one of the 2 extra DLC that we could use in this build, I was really excited about that, and I was like, I have to use the doors and windows from that pack because they are absolutely beautiful. They're still, to this day, one of my favorite set of doors and windows that we have out of all of the DLC that we have. I love the Life and Death ones too. Those are really nice. It would have been cool to have included Life and Death with this as well, but alas, I was trying to do a very limited pack build, which, if you're new here, that is something that I obviously don't do super often, but also is extremely hard for me. I would say that in some ways, this build took me way longer to do simply because it was limited pack, and I have a lot of things I'm like, oh, this would look great here. It's like, oh yeah, I can't use it. So it's really funny how that ends up happening and how you get used to using certain things, or you think of certain objects right off the bat, but then it's like, I can't use that here, so what can I substitute? And that's where the challenge comes in with, like, how can I evoke what I want without actually getting to use what I want to use? Now, with the floor plan, I was trying to channel my inner suburban, like, subdivision home, and I wanted the floor plan to be super simple, so I tried to keep a lot of the floor plan, like, very rectangular, and just, like, all the rooms are square and rectangular shapes. So I didn't want there to be, like, this super funky kind of shape to it. Now, upstairs, we do get a little bit of that, but I tried to keep it as simple as possible because usually with these suburban homes, they don't have like a lot of like unique design aspects to them. They're just very simple. There's nothing wrong with that at all. I'm not saying that as a criticism. It's just very different from what I'm used to doing in The Sims. Y'all know I like to try some different weird, funky, quirky things with my builds. So that was the idea. So we just have a really big living space, a kitchen and a dining room with a half bath downstairs. And then upstairs, this took the longest. Trying to figure out the layout upstairs definitely was a time suck. I was on stream. Y'all were helping me. Thank you so much for the help that I got. I did take a couple of suggestions, which helped a lot. And then we do actually have a third floor here as well with an attic space. So it doesn't look like it from the outside necessarily, but I like that because then it's like a nice little surprise that there is a space upstairs. And with Paranormal, you know, I had to put the seance table up there. So we have a fun space up in the attic for that reason. Now, what I ended up doing was I was able to manage 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms on the second floor alone, which I think is actually pretty good considering how large the hallway is too. So we could have probably fit even more up there depending on the layout of the space. The staircase placement is always the hardest when you have multiple floors, and that was what was messing me up here because it was more so in the center of the second floor, just based on where I have it downstairs. So it was hard to work around that, but I think we managed to pull off a pretty nice layout upstairs. The primary bedroom is just a really big rectangle. It's a little weird with how wide it is, and by how wide I mean lack thereof. It's pretty skinny actually. So it was hard to fit the bed in very easily, and so I had to put the bed up against the wall, which I don't usually like to do hardly at all. I hardly ever do that actually in my primary bedrooms, but as you can see, I really wanted to use this bed, and I was like determined to use the Realm of Magic bed because it's so pretty and it's one of the DLC. So it's like I'm trying to use the 2 packs we were able to use as much as possible. So I use a lot of the paranormal furniture in the living space here, and I end up getting, I think, a really nice color scheme going with this like dark mauve-y color, not really mauve, but more burgundy rather. Sorry if I made you mad for saying mauve initially, but it's like this nice burgundy color with the yellow accent pillows and the blue. So I was trying to play on the sofa. The sofa was very much the inspiration for this room and the color scheme. So that's why I put the blue rug, and then I have the yellow accent chair just to bring those colors out a bit more. And then I put the big Realm of Magic window and have bookcases up against this wall just because I think that's really pretty. Now keep in mind, I'm not used to budgeted builds, so I went a little crazy on the first floor, and it wasn't until I was starting to like really clutter up the second floor that I was like, oh no, what am I doing? So we did struggle there toward the end, but we managed to make it work. At the end, I was like, what can I trade off here? I really want to use this object. What can I get rid of? So we definitely played that game for a while with rotating objects in and out of the build with like, what can I compromise on? Like, what can I do with this just to get more objects in? Because it was looking a little empty, and obviously is going to be empty. And it was just a bit much for a $100,000 budget, which I'm so grateful I got that. But when you have this big of a house and with this many bedrooms and Sims living in it, that goes really quickly. Like, I think we had already eaten up almost a fifth of the budget with just like the shell, the windows, and the doors. Like, it was crazy. The Realm of Magic stuff, I guess, is pretty expensive. So, you know, probably not the best pack to include on a budgeted build, but I think it was really fun. I like the way it ended up turning out in the end. So it was definitely worth it. It was just a bit tricky to work with. I put this nice back porch space with a staircase on either side. And yes, I used the fence from Realm of Magic, which I know is extremely expensive, so that ate up a lot of the budget too. But I wanted a fenced-in backyard because that's very suburban. And now we're working on the dining space. Now, I loved putting these like wraparound windows in the dining space. Just the idea of sitting at a table like that and having a view that goes around the whole room, essentially, and looking out would be so pretty. Like to have, you know, a cup of coffee and sit down there with a book or like just your laptop even, just working and being able to look out windows like that would be such a vibe to me. Now, I wanted to keep with this really dark aesthetic. Again, this was called the Spoopy Suburban, and I'd come up with that really before we even started working on it. I already knew just from the reference photo, I was like, it looks like a Suburban, it's very square, so I was like, this is gonna be the Spoopy Suburban. So I kept with a lot of black colors, and I like doing that because then it makes anything that has a colored swatch pop off of it a bit more. And then I just did this like galleyway type kitchen in here again. I just thought that was something that's very common in subdivisions and such. Like my mom's current house now, she downsized and it has a galleyway kitchen, whereas her previous house had a huge kitchen. So that was very much a big change. I didn't live there. It didn't bother me so much, but I do miss her old kitchen. Like if I do bake there, which has been years since I've done that, but I really liked her old kitchen. Anyway, I did think of my mom when I was doing the kitchen in this build though. And then I was thinking like in the kitchen, I was playing around with doing a burgundy paint on the wall just to match the color in the living room, but it wasn't quite a match. And then it looked like I was trying too hard because then it like somewhat clashed. So I didn't like the vibe of that. So I went with this gray color and really went all in with the walls being just blacks and grays. And then I'm putting the half bath here. I just kept it super simple. Again, budgeted build. I usually like to clutter up my bathrooms a little bit. Could not do that. This is where I was already panicking because I was on the second floor and my budget was dwindling away pretty significantly. Now, don't pay attention to the money in the bottom left corner. That's not accurate. You might see me end up like clicking up like I'm going to upload it to the gallery. That's how I kept up with how expensive it was and how much it was going to be. So if you see me going back and forth between that, that's what I'm doing. Now, I went with the purple vibe up in the bedroom here with the Realm of Magic stuff. And I end up carrying that through a little bit into what ends up being a nursery space. And then I do something a bit different for the teenager's bedroom on the very end. So it's an interesting color palette on the second floor. It doesn't really vibe well together, but obviously that's not a bad thing because in real life, you don't usually have the same color scheme in every room of your house. So not a big deal, but it does kind of catch your eye. I'll leave it at that. Y'all will see. You'll see what I did on that last bedroom. It is very different from the rest of the house. But I ended up doing a primary bathroom at least that fit just fine. Used some of the Realm of Magic stuff, and then I carried the stonework in somewhat with the brick. I like the idea of that. Now, that's not something you usually would see in a suburban home necessarily, but I thought it made it a little bit more aged. I like the look of that. And I did change it, actually. I did not remember that. It's been a minute since I've worked on this. I did put the Realm of Magic tile. So we did use that tile in there. I do remember that now. So we put Realm of Magic all over the place. Again, limited packs. So I tried to lean on those 2 packs that we had the whole time as much as I could. Now, this space was like a combined nursery toddler room. I was thinking that it was just for one sim. It was just we already had it prepped for when they go into the next life stage. So it has a lot of infant stuff as well as toddler stuff in it. And I was struggling a little bit with the color scheme here. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do yet, but I knew I wanted the orange in there somewhat because it gave me Halloween vibes. So I was going with that. We had the purple in the other room. So I was like, orange, purple, that works. And then I actually eventually end up incorporating, I think, purple in here too. So the nursery ends up being purple and orange, which is a fun vibe for a little kid's space. It took me a minute to get the layout for this, but I think I ended up liking the layout of this room a good bit. This is the funkiest shaped room in the whole house. And I did remember a high chair, by the way. Y'all would be so proud. There have been times when I've had like an infant or toddler space and then I just completely forget to put a high chair in the dining space. But I always seem to remember the toddler potties. So that's really funny how that works out. Now, this is one of my favorite rugs like ever. And it's a base game rug, which is perfect. But I love this mountain rug and they have really cute swatches for it. So I definitely was going to put that in there. I ended up putting something else. I can't remember. I did go back and change the purple bunny. That is not the object that I left in there. I might have even put the scary kind of spooky death bunny one, but I feel like that's from a pack. I honestly can't remember. It's been a minute. I'm trying to catch up on builds before I go to TwitchCon. So I'm recording this the day before I leave. And this is just like stressing me out a little bit. So I'm getting behind, but I'm trying to catch up on content so I can get it posted and scheduled for you all to enjoy while I am in San Diego, which, by the way, I am really excited about going to TwitchCon. It was a very last minute decision. I have met some really great people. I have some really great people in my life, and I wasn't planning on going because of the cost of it. And a lot of you from my streams on Twitch know a lot about my life circumstances and what's going on right now and why it was really hard for me to afford to do it. So with that, I'm excited to say I'm going to TwitchCon. If you're going to TwitchCon, by all means, comment down below. I'd love to maybe even try to meet you. You know, if you want to try and meet. It's there. I'm putting it out there. But I'm really excited to go to San Diego. It's been a minute since I've been to San Diego. Actually, the last time I went to San Diego was for a conference, but it was like a scientific conference. So not like for a fun conference necessarily. So I'm excited to go to San Diego and it be for fun like that. And then the time before that, I was there for a wedding. So this is only my third time going to San Diego, but I love the city. I'm excited to explore, maybe see what's changed over the past few years. So yeah, that's all I have to say about that. I'm excited to go. We'll see how it goes. And I will hopefully have some exciting updates for you all. Now, we're getting into the teenage bedroom now. I did make it for 2 sims. So if you think about it, we have like a 5 sim household here, potentially 6. If you wanted to make the nursery room for an infant and a toddler, then you could have 6 sims in here with a couple included. You know, it's actually really great for the size of home and the budget to have 6 sims be able to live in this house very comfortably. Now, I was struggling with the colors that I wanted in here. It took me forever to find beds that I wanted as well. I wasn't sure about the metal frames. On stream, y'all wanted the metal frames and thought it fit the vibe, and I agree. It ended up coming together. I was not dead set on that just yet at the time, but we ended up getting a color scheme to work in here, and it's, as you can see, a very vibrant red color. So this is like a classic, I think, combination. I love red and black. I think it's a really cool combination, especially whenever you're doing like gothic builds or any type of spooky build in general. And it just makes me think of Bella Goth, you know? So it just has that realm and vibe around it, but it is very different from the color scheme literally everywhere else in this house. It sticks out, but it's really fun, and I love the idea. I mentioned this in a previous video recently where, like, when I was a kid, I had a blue room and then the rest of the house was just this beigey color, and so it makes me think of that, where in this house it's like the kids wanted a red bedroom and then the rest of the house is like all this dark color scheme. So it's just fun to think how with kids, you know, they have their own space and it's very different from the rest of the house, generally speaking, because they'll have posters all over the wall. It's just more unique to them and their personality. Whereas, you know, with primary bedrooms, I'm not saying people can't do that and don't do that, but it's not as typical to see super weird, crazy, eclectic primary bedrooms. They're usually just more sophisticated or more mature looking. So it's fun to do that. And I love this wallpaper. I use this in the primary bedroom, but also up in the attic space. It's one of my favorite wallpapers still to date from Paranormal. I wish we got more prints like this. I've been working on a Maplecroft Mansion build, and if you're not familiar with that, you will be soon because I'm going to be posting it on YouTube as well. But there are a lot of floral and plant print wallpapers in that house, and I'm recreating it from real life. So like I have a 3D modeled floor plan that I'm following to a T as much as I can. We need more wallpapers that have leaf prints and designs on them. You know, so I really hope in the future we get some of those because it is desperately needed in this game. Now, I did end up doing some fun colors. It took me a minute to figure out the color combination and swatch that I wanted to use upstairs, but I end up going with this vibrant yellow color as like an accent because the walls are blue. We have a lot of blue going on. So I was like, I need something that's a bit different that pops off of that a good bit. So that was really fun to figure that out. We have like a yellow orangey accent with that. And then now we're getting to the clutter phase. I know a lot of you know this, but I feel like I need to say it pretty regularly because we always have new people stopping by. I love going through my builds and I go through and lay them out and put all of the big furniture pieces first just so I can get an idea of what's going to fit or like what the vibe is going to be. It sets the tone for the room, and then I don't have to think through like layout and what clutter I'm going to use all at one time. So it's nice to go through the entire house with staging it first with the furniture pieces for the most part that I want. Then I go back in and add all the details and clutter and fun objects. So that is the part that we are getting to now, which makes me think of, you just saw me place that wall light. Now, I know those are expensive. I used a lot of them in this build. Did I need to? No, but they look really cool in live mode. So I was like, I'm going to use those wall sconces, and I don't care that they are like 150 a piece or 125 or something like that. It's some amount of money that I did not need to be spending on light fixtures because I put so many of them both inside and outside the house. And then I put some accent tables here. This was still relatively early in the design aspect in terms of budget, so I still don't know if I was closely monitoring the budget as much yet, but I will say that downstairs is where a lot of the money went, as well as just like the windows and stuff outside with the house. And it ends up showing a little bit. I try to clutter up the bedroom spaces as much as I can, given my constraint, but the downstairs is definitely, I think, a lot better than the upstairs part. Now, the attic is still really cool and fun, too. It's just the bedroom spaces and the bathrooms. So that's why here, I definitely made the bathroom spaces very much more lackluster, just because I was wanting to prioritize the bedrooms at least a bit more than the bathrooms. So my bathrooms in this build are not nearly as fun and cluttered, which might sound weird, but I do like cluttering up my bathrooms a good bit. I like putting decor items in there. I like putting shelves. I almost put shelves in every single bathroom, I think, that I do for the most part, because I like putting towels, plants, candles, the bathroom clutter stuff, like sleep bathroom kit stuff that we got. So I love doing bathrooms, and I think they're pretty fun to do, and you can do some really fun eclectic vibes with the tiles and the color combinations with the shelves and stuff. So I get into it. I did not do that in this build. We had a budget to stick to, and that's just how it went, unfortunately. But thankfully, we got the upper end of the budget. Now, if we had gotten a lower budget, I don't think I would have done a house this big. I definitely would have shrunk it down. I don't even know if we would have done a 2-story house even. I think it was very ambitious even with 100,000 to do a build this big for this many Sims, and I think we ended up pulling it off just fine. But on the subject of not getting to clutter too terribly much, the same is true for the kitchen. I tried my best to clutter the kitchen as much as I could, but it just wasn't enough money. We didn't have enough money to do nearly as much as I did, or nearly as much as I wanted to, but it's fine. It turned out fine. I ended up adding some upper cabinets because it was looking a little blank in here, which always happens when you have the taller wall height. And then I ended up changing the curtains on just the side. I left the big Realm of Magic curtain for the big window, just like as a nice accent, but then I used the Paranormal curtains everywhere else. Now, these curtains are also pretty expensive from these packs, so that definitely ate up a good bit of the budget too. But it was definitely worth it at the end of the day because it added a fun stylistic element. And it just makes the home feel more suburban-y and cozy. So I was like, I have to use this. And then one thing I was excited about using were these white appliances from Realm of Magic. I don't think I've ever used this swatch. So I was trying to use some things that I don't usually use, and that makes it more fun, I think. But I like how they popped off with everything else being this black or dark gray color. They stand out, and I always like my appliances or something in the kitchen like that to stand out a good bit. So I think we got that effect pretty well. I ended up putting coffee and mugs. No matter how small the kitchen is or what my budget, I'm always going to put coffee or tea in there. There's no way that's not going to happen. So that's always one of my go-to objects that I will put in whenever I can. And I hung up some of the herbs from Realm of Magic. I did put a trash can in the kitchen too. I did not forget that. And I have some fruit. I put the little fruit picture there too of the pears. And that was a cute little vibe. So, you know, I did what I could. I think I went back and maybe added a couple more things, but that's for the most part what I ended up doing with the kitchen. Okay, and then I ended up pulling those paranormal pictures. Those are super expensive. I mean, we're talking about like close to around $4,000 for all 3 of those pictures. And I think I ended up getting rid of 2 of them at the end of the day. I kept 1 of the 3. And I just needed the money. So I was not able to do that. I was like, I'm going to go ahead and pull them because they're so expensive. And I was like, I will keep them up there. If we can use them, great. If I need extra money though, then I know what to delete, and I used them as I needed to. Now we're starting to clutter the primary bedroom. I didn't do too much in here again. Just the budget was really, really gone at this point. So I just put like the candles on that table and then put a few clutter objects on the dresser and put a light. And then I found something to put on the wall here. And that was basically it for the primary bedroom. One of my plainest bedrooms ever. But again, I just have to remind myself it was a budgeted build. It was a limited pack build on top of that, which honestly, that works so well for me. If it had been a budgeted build with all of the DLC, I honestly think that would have been even harder in some ways because I would have wanted to put so many different objects. And I think I would have been playing that game at the end of this, like where let me delete this so I can grab this, let me delete this and save some money and then I can get more of these. I would have been doing that for way longer, I think, if I didn't have restrictions on the DLC. So as you can see, I did put those lights kind of all over the place. So I did have, someone, I'm not going to call out who it was, but I did have someone in the chat, picking on me about using those lights and basically saying not to use those lights and that I should not use those lights to save my money. I did not listen. I did what I wanted to. And then I ended up working on this little space in here for the kiddo. Now, this room, I think, turned out pretty cute, all things considered. And then I ended up putting, I can't remember the name of it right now, but that little guy next to the bed that I put the wall decal, there's something in his name about like a dream catcher or something to that effect, and so that's why I put him over by the bed. I'll have to look whenever I tour if I can remember to look. I probably won't remember though, but I did put him there intentionally for that reason, and I put books over the bed. I like the idea that the kid like stands up on the bed and picks a book for nighttime, and then we read it to him or her. I just like the storytelling of that. I think as a little kid, it would be exciting to be able to, jump up on your bed and find a book like that. And then for the teenage space, I just put some of those inflatable chairs. I was so excited to use this. This is for my first time actually using that object from the event we did a while back. And then I put a guitar. Now I do change the guitars out. One, because it's technically from an event, or like you sign up on the Sims team's email list or something and you get that guitar. I don't remember, but I went back and took it out, and then I ended up just having, I think, one guitar as opposed to two, so I could save money. So they have to share a guitar, I think. Again, I can't remember everything about this build. And then I wanted the attic to be a little bit more dark with the lighting. So I think this is like a really great mood lighting. I pulled that debug orb light from Realm of Magic and put it with the crystal ball. Like the crystal ball is glowing. And then I do something that's a little fun and quirky with our debug baby and make it look like it's levitating above the crystal ball. So that's pretty fun, I think, in some ways. So now we're working on the outside, and like I said, this fence is so expensive. I was trying to put it around the entire lot, and I wanted the double gate, I wanted all of this stuff, and it was way, way, way too expensive. So then I shrunk it down to just being like toward the back, and then I actually end up changing it again and make it even smaller. So you'll see me playing with that fence line a pretty good bit whenever I need to save some money. And there you go. You just saw I deleted 2 of those 3 pictures from Paranormal. That's why. I needed more money, and then I almost put something from Businesses and Hobbies because my filter had turned off, and luckily I caught that. But when I did the outside and I actually uploaded it to the gallery at first, I did have a couple of extra packs by accident, because at some point when I was working outside, I think it was, or even there was one thing inside too, I had the filters turned off, or I grabbed a debug item from another pack or something, so I had to go back in and change up a few things. So, it's always tricky whenever you do that. Now, usually I would use James Turner's little, pack selector and then disable all the packs that I needed to disable. I couldn't do that because I had started a different build in this save file, and I didn't want to like mess that up in any capacity. And I'm still not sure if I were to load into the save file, if I like load into it without all my packs and then have them all again and then reload into it, if it would replace all those objects and put them back. I don't know if it does that or not. So I was like, I'm not going to play around with that. So I made the mistake of accidentally starting another build in this save file though. And I was just like, it's fine. I'll just work with the filter. We ended up doing it. It was not a big deal, but I'm like figuring out the landscaping. I'm pulling a lot of different trees and objects that I think work well for this space and this world. I always reference the world around us to get some of the landscaping to tie it in a little bit better. I just think that's a good hack in general. So if you don't know where to start with landscaping, look at what you have around you. If you're building in a particular world, filter by that world first when you're looking in debug for some of the plants and stuff. That way you can match the surroundings a bit better. And then even if you have landscaping and objects from other packs to put outside with the plants, it at least kind of helps tie it in a little bit better. If you want to be a truist to like the space, or a purist, I don't know what the right term would be for that, but if you just want it to kind of fit the space a bit more, I like doing that. It's not important because you have people who will download your builds off the gallery anyway, and they'll put them on whatever lot in whatever world, so it doesn't have to match the world around it. I just think that I like the vibe of it matching the world somewhat, and it just makes it look cleaner in some ways and not just too off the wall, because sometimes it's just like, if you have jungle-y looking plants and you're in a world like Hempford on Bagley, it just doesn't look right. That's just what I like to do. It's a personal preference. It's definitely not a rule at all. Everything's subjective. You do what you want to do. You do you, And I wanted to put those plants that we have on the back that are like almost dead looking. I like the idea of transitioning into the fall, so we have some of our plants that are starting to kind of die or wither away and prepare for the winter season. So that's what I was doing there. So I have some trees that have like a brown and green combination to the leaves. Some of them are just brown. Some of them are already dead looking. But that was the idea with that. And then I just put like this little grill barbecue area outside with a patio space. And I play with the terrain paint quite a bit. I do not like using terrain paint like for stone work and things like that. I like it with dirt and landscaping, but that's about it. I don't really like using it for actual flooring because it's hard to make it look right on the edges. It just doesn't fade right. Like the fact that it does fade is kind of weird when it's a stone. So, it's just a little weird like that. I had this big space over on this part of the yard, and I was really wanting to put a swing set. Sims team, give us a dang base game swing set, I had to refrain from saying a different word. Give us a base game swing set, please. That's ridiculous. Just give it to us. Like, I really, really want a base game swing set because I was wanting to put a swing set there and I couldn't for that reason. That would be nice. And on that note, I think we're getting ready to wrap up. I'm getting to where I'm just doing some last minute touches outside, and then I play, you know, what can I get rid of for money for a bit. So let's just go ahead and check out the final product. So I built it in Glimmerbrook on this 30 by 20 lot, and this is the build at a glance from the outside. I'll just pan around really quick. But this fence is so expensive, y'all. Like, this Phoenix fence, it's like 105 per tile. So it was thousands of dollars to get that, but I really, really wanted a fancy fence. Someone was like, get one in Debug. I know Debug has a few, but we're also on limited packs, and Debug doesn't have very great options with base game when it comes to fences. I like some fences from Life and Death, and I think it's Cottage Living, but like it wasn't worth digging in Debug, I didn't think. But I managed to like put a bike out here. I know, it's so exciting. We have a table with a grill, and that's about it. We have a bird bath over here. I thought that'd be cute near the dining room windows. And then off the front here, I did match the like lights that we have around the neighborhood. So I put a couple of those because they match over here to this. So again, if you match your surroundings, you can make it look like it fits in really well into the world that it's built in. So as you come in, this is like our mini foyer space. So you have a little walkway there, and then you come over to the living room space. This is whenever you could tell, like, I wasn't worried about budget because it looks a bit more stylized and finished, I think, than other parts of the house. But I do think it turned out really cute. This fireplace gets way too much hate, okay, y'all? Like, calm down about the fireplace. I love this fireplace. I use it, actually, I think it's one of my most used fireplaces, if I think about it. And maybe it's just the style that I build in, but I use this all the time. I think it's really pretty. I love this fireplace. So you know what? If you don't like it, don't let me know. Don't let me know, because then it's just gonna upset me. You have no taste. No taste whatsoever. I'm just kidding. But this is what we have. I put the little gramophone over there, and then you can walk around. We have the half bath here. So again, limited pack, nothing to see here. Now you'll notice that we don't have toilet paper. There's a funny story about that. I'll get to that. This is the dining space. So really nice view outside. I love this. I think the wallpaper goes so well with these windows. Like, just the style of it with the lines, I think is so cute. Then we have our kitchen space right off of that. Again, I tried to clutter it as much as I could. You know, given the circumstances, we have more clutter on this side than we do over here, but at least you have a functional counter, you know, to do things on. And then you wrap back around. We're gonna go upstairs now. So as you come upstairs, we have this landing with the hall to get to all the bathrooms and bedrooms. I put some shoes here. I just like the idea that maybe we take our shoes off up here because the rooms are carpeted. So this part is not carpeted. We do have like a rug, but the bedrooms are carpeted. So I like the idea that we have a rule we can't wear them in there. Then we have a little desk space here with the computer. I went back and forth on the computer because I put a computer in here as well for the teens. I was like, well, if they have a computer, someone else, like at least from the primary, needs to have a computer. And then we have the bedroom space here. I did get the big bed in here. I was so excited about that. But I think it's kind of cute. I think I cluttered it pretty well too, given the restrictions that we have. Then we get into the bathroom. You have your toilet over in this area, shower, and then your vanity space right there. And then coming back out to the hall, we have our other bathroom. So this is for like literally everyone else with the shower at least. Have our toilet, sink. I put one of these at least to make it look more cluttered in here. It's always a hack. You get a display case of some sort. And then our teen bedroom, they have a nice fancy laptop as well. And this is their space. So they have a hangout space with video games. I only had one guitar at the end of the day, and then the two beds there. And then we have our space going up to the attic. So as we come up here, you can just look all the way down through the attic. I love the vibe up here. I think it turned out really well given, again, the budget and everything. But there's our little Debug baby just floating, just chilling. You know, I don't know exactly what's happening here. Maybe we conjured him. I don't know. He's a lost spirit. He's a lost spirit. But that's the vibes, y'all. This is the build. I think it turned out really, really well, especially given the fact it was a limited pack for me and a limited budget. So I love the way this space turned out. Oh, we forgot to go into the nursery. Really quickly, I'll show you all the nursery. So this is what that ended up looking like with the orange tones and the purple. Okay, so I did leave the bunny. I think I went back and forth and I grabbed it and then I was like, yeah, it's not from the pack I can use. So I left the bunny. So we had the purple bunny. Oh yeah, what's this guy's name? What is this called? Dream Eater. That's why I put that there next to the bed. So I think that's really cute. And this is on the gallery as Spoopy Suburban. Spoopy Suburban, more like Poopy Suburban. I had to remove the toilet paper to stay on budget. So that's what was happening at the end of the build when I had like $100 or $150. Toilet paper is like 50 each. So I had toilet paper in all 3 bathrooms, and then I was trying to get one object. I don't remember what it was. And so I deleted all the toilet paper so I could get this one other object. It might have been to do with the computer too. I had something with the computer situation. So I was like, it's the Poopy Suburban because you can't wipe. So anyways, I just had a lot of fun with that. I thought it was cute. So I'm going to pat myself on the back on that. Just give it to me. Okay. Just let me have it. And on that note, thank you if you made it to the end of the video. I had a lot of fun with this build. I hope you all enjoyed it. Let me know if you play with it. This one at least is a lot more accessible to all of you to download off the gallery. And then I just want to say thank you to all my Soul supporters. And if you want to follow me over on Twitch, I have that link down below. We've been doing a lot of fun, like Halloween themed or autumnal themed, spoopy themed builds lately. So if you want to check out my latest one, I'll put that over here for you. And with that, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Okay? Bye. Y'all, I really am going to try to do some type of limited pack build or something in the future more regularly. I need to figure out a cadence for it, but I promise I'm going to try to do better.